Looks like we're live.
We are. Happy Friday, late afternoon, end of the week, special edition. Some breaking news today. HubSpot acquiring Cacheflow. And when I first saw the post today, it was presented as HubSpot buys a CPQ. And I was like, oh man, I need to talk to my CPQ guy, Bill Barless. How you doing, man?
I'm well. How are you, Chris? Looks like an exciting day. Sunny out, birds are chirping, new acquisitions on the horizon. Here we
Yeah,
are.
yeah. It has been an exciting day, and just when you think you can just spend all your time focused on AI, and that's going to be the news of the day for HubSpot forever, um, they come at you from another direction. Uh,
Yeah.
and this is exciting for me because I love Commerce Hub and I love, helping people do better, with quote to cash. And as great as Commerce Hub is, we know there's been some, it's been baby steps, and they've been doing a lot of great things, but really taking it to the next level so that mid market and enterprise can start using this thing. There's a gap there for sure. But I when I first saw the post, I'm like, okay, CPQ, that's a huge deal. Um,
Yep.
I did a show with Max at Happily recently. They just came out with, you know, um, quote Happily to try and address this need that has been missing from HubSpot. A little bit of background: me and Bill first met at my last gig when he is representing Excite CPQ and bringing in an integration into HubSpot. Um, and so I've been lucky to have his brain around whenever the topic of CPQ comes up, and we always have some interesting conversations because uh, we travel in manufacturing circles, and when we start to hear and see CPQ in a SaaS context, it's always a little bit confusing. Um, why why is that, Bill? I'll let you kind of share your um, your point of view there. Why is CPQ such a nuanced topic?
Well, I think, Chris, CPQ means a lot of different things to different people in different industries. Um, in the context of manufacturing, I think it's traditionally meant more of a manufacturing and product configurator, something that's used for documenting and then applying product logic for sales reps that are out selling a machine or a piece of equipment. And that can have a lot of different options and variations and sort of solving for that combination of different types of products. Um, what we're running into today and what HubSpot appears to have acquired is a little bit different and um, again means something else. Um, what they're talking about is a solution that allows SaaS companies to sell software licenses um, in a more efficient way. So definitely an exciting step forward for HubSpot, and I'm really interested to see, you know, what they do with this new acquisition and how they integrate it into their platform more closely. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
pretty cool.
yeah. It's cool for sure. Um, but I think like I'm excited to get out in front of this because the last thing I want is more confusion around what CPQ
Yep,
is and maybe can be inside of HubSpot. And are we there yet? And and when Nico pulled it up, we were just on our AI show, which I've got some AI questions for you later related to CPQ. Um,
absolutely.
uh, and he pulled up the news story, and it was like cash flow, B2B billing management, and CPQ.
Yep,
Like, oh,
absolutely.
okay. Um,
Yep.
that starts to make more sense. But then we see that the problem is we're using the same words. So in this case, when it says they provide subscription billing and configure price quote software to automate revenue management and shorten the sales cycle. In when you see subscription billing right next to configure price quote, like what does it actually mean in this context?
Absolutely. So when you talk about CPQ in this context, um, the the configure component of it has kind of a small c, because when you talk about selling something, you're actually selling a SKU that represents a software license. Or maybe it represents, another example would be if you have a recurring agreement to work a certain number of hours per month for a customer or do something like that. That's really what we're talking about here. So um, lowercase c, uppercase p, uppercase q in this case. So we're thinking more along the lines of, we have a software license that we're selling. How are we going to sell that? Is it a usage based model? Is it for a subscription that's going to cost a certain amount per month? Things of that nature, which is really exciting in the SaaS world. So, uh, you know, different thing than sort of that traditional manufacturing configurator, um, and really a fit for companies that are selling software licenses. Um,
Yeah, and I
where I'm
think
really interested. Yeah, go ahead.
it sounds like so even in the simple definitions that you've already given, it's like in this case we're configuring the deal. Like we're
Yes.
configuring
Correct.
what we're selling from strictly like a revenue, based
Yes.
perspective to make sure margins are good and discounts don't go too far, right? And we're not uh, selling too much or too little or but it's not
Yeah.
about it's less about like the
It's
product
not
build,
guided selling, right?
right?
It's not guided selling for a product. It's guiding the deal. Um, and where the billing component of it really comes in, and where this is going to be extremely handy, is managing things like a renewal. So if you're selling a software on a 2-year license, and at the end of that 2-year license there's a planned price increase or something along those lines, this software will be extremely useful for managing that kind of work. um, where I
Right.
think there's probably still some room, and where I'm interested in where HubSpot will take this, and where I think a lot of solution providers that partner with HubSpot already have, is when you start to sell combinations of products and services together, or licenses and services together, things like that. So I think this software is something that will fit in, um, and be sort of part of a more holistic offer around quoting different combinations of things. So I think that this software could stand alone for a company that's only selling licenses. um, but where there's still, I think, room in the market is um, mixes of different types of solutions. um, so
Yeah.
very, very interesting, how this fits in. So
Yeah.
yeah, and I've watched some demos and it's exciting stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, it definitely looks really good. And just like these are common challenges like we're constantly hearing. Um, people like Stuart Balcom made some great playbooks about like how to track recurring revenue and putting teams in a position to upsell and cross sell and track renewals and just making that stuff possible. It still can be clunky at times in HubSpot. Um, so
Yeah.
this will
So
be
there's a spectrum, right? So of different levels of complexity of what a company needs to sell, right? So on one side you have a software license, or even a widget that you're selling that has an individual unit to it, right? We're going to pick a quantity, and we're going to choose a price associated with that, or the price comes in from the line item or product data inside HubSpot. That's on one side of the spectrum. On the other side of the spectrum is where you're selling much more complex products that have a lot of configurable options to them. And so when we think about like how a RevOps professional will go about choosing the right solution, if you're selling a single thing, maybe you can just use HubSpot quotes out of the box. If you're selling something that requires a recurring revenue model, then Cacheflow makes great sense. Maybe you have something where you have a little bit of service that you're selling one time combined with a recurring revenue software license or a license of some kind. In that case, maybe using some of the software that we're looking at today combined with maybe some of the UI extensions, some custom cards inside HubSpot to do some of the configuration, that makes sense. You can sort of tune a data model to what's available. And then you have manufacturing. And in the manufacturing world, you might have what they call in CPQ a combinatorial explosion. You have hundreds of different possible options of different things that you could possibly sell to a customer, and you have sales reps that might need a more guided approach. That's where sort of your classical manufacturing configurator, things that I've worked on a lot in my career, Excite, as you mentioned earlier, that's sort of where that sort of starts to come in and fit in. So, and what I notice about a lot of the different solutions is their marketing sometimes speaks negatively about each other, and that's not really, in my opinion, correct. Really, the way to think about this is, what do I need for my company? They all have a place, right? And so thinking about how does the company sell, what do they sell, that will allow you to choose the correct solution from the whole gamut of solutions that are out there um, in the ecosystem right now. And um, I think that HubSpot's acquisition of this particular solution makes a lot of sense, because I think that when you're sort of first starting your journey, the first thing that you might want to do is have a solution that makes it a little bit easier to quote individual products. And so I think this serves the mass market well. Um, and I'm really excited to learn more about it and sort of how it fits in. But that's my take, is that there's a whole spectrum of different types of solutions out there, and CPQ is sort of a vast and expansive space. Almost, you could think about it almost in the same size as like CRM solutions. What do you really need for your individual business, and how does that apply?
Yeah. No, I think those are some great points. And just I'm glad I scrolled to the bottom here, because this is like, if you're not in SaaS, like
Yeah,
this should be the statement that really keys you in on what this is designed to do. And it's like, it's almost like if we could not have CPQ standing by itself ever, can it either said
yes,
SaaS CPQ or product CPQ, like
yes,
that would help so much.
yes.
Because
It just means different things, right?
even as I'm looking at this, you'd see words like SaaS and deals, um, in quotes and contracts, right? And then
Yeah,
I have the Excite, site here, and we see right away we see complex quotes, but then we see words like orders and
yeah,
products, and down here we see projects, right? These are much different things, than the CPQs that we're seeing related to SaaS. And I think we already make it hard enough just by using all these words that mean so many different things, but these are ways that you can, like, if you're doing your own research and just start to understand, like, really pricing, like, you helped me break it down one time where it's like, okay, without any tools plugged in, like nothing like Quote Happily or Deal Hub or any tool plugged in, HubSpot can quote, right?
yes,
The price
absolutely.
stuff where it's like, which price book am I using? okay, if I hit 100, then it's automatically going to discount, or I need this approval. That is now price quote. And
Yes,
now we
correct.
have configure, and we have big C and little c. But it's
Yes, we
helpful. We
do.
gotta differentiate where, um, you know, like, and you did a great job of that. But that's where it's important to kind of understand that if you can find ways to define, like, just not see the CPQ and see, like, okay, what does quoting actually mean? It just means putting a price in somebody's hands and some document, that they can sign, right? Helping people determine price, right, based on various dynamics, and maybe approvals. And then configuring, we're either configuring the deals, like based on revenue, or we're configuring products and
Yeah.
projects and things that have to take into account all of these resources, or things that, like, we talk about sales maybe selling stuff they shouldn't sometimes. Like, that's where
Yes.
it's like, okay, if you sell this thing and it's this configuration, we can't make it. Like, we
Yep.
can't make it,
Exactly.
right?
Well, and another way to think about it is that the C in configure price quote, that piece of it is sort of before the line items are added into HubSpot, right? So a way to sort of think about it is how complex is the requirement that I have for getting line items into HubSpot that are correct, right? So, when if we talk about cash flow, the real truth is that the getting the line items in probably isn't that big of an issue, right? Whereas if we talk about the Excite use case, getting the right line items in that all make sense and fit together, that is an extremely complex problem to solve. So that's sort of where the configure component of it comes in. We think about configurators. I think every person ever has probably gone on the Toyota website and configured themselves a new car. Um,
Yeah.
that's
Like, I think
that's really where we're trying to go
that's what their
with
homepage says
manufacturing.
here. Buying a
Yeah.
Tesla takes 4 minutes. Why not everything? It's like, well, you happen to be comparing a product configurator to SaaS right off the
Yes,
bat.
absolutely.
So that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
But
Thanks, guys.
right. But yeah, we're talking about the everything here.
Yep,
Uh anyway.
absolutely.
Yeah, and I didn't know I was gonna have an example. But I actually do. Because in one of the portals, so the space that I'm from and I'm working in again, I'm trying to find a good example here. And maybe this doesn't have anything filled out. Um, but like the material science space, and this is why I wanted a CPQ, like, in that space, right? Like, um, and this is a simple, like, probably doesn't need a significant amount of rules, but it's simple to say, like, if a customer starts to ask you for, like, 26 karat gold, for example, where you can't go over 100%, right? Or they start to be like, oh, I need to test some of this and some of this. And as soon as you hit 100% with these totaled up, you can't create the product, you can't sell the product, can't quote the product, right? So
Right.
that's the kind of stuff where, it's fun to see, like, where we're going, like,
Yep.
the pieces are in place, to see that in HubSpot. But I'm curious for your take, like, what is uh there's a rules engine that you always bring up. Like, can you talk about that and why we really might not want to expect that out of HubSpot at this moment in time?
Yeah, I think that a rules engine is something that becomes extremely handy for a small group of sort of specialized customers. Um, I don't know if it's really strategically valuable even for HubSpot to be kind of in that business. It's its own thing. Um, it has a lot of complexity behind it and how it's administered and created. Um, a lot of the difficulties around implementing sort of these traditional CPQ projects, CPQ, C with a capital C. That's a lot of where that comes in. And I really think that, in the market today, um, that's something you need to be really prepared for as as a customer of these solutions. It can be expensive to implement. And so it's probably not something that sort of the mass market of HubSpot customers may want or need. So it's important to kind of understand that distinction, um, when
Yeah. No, it's definitely
you know.
one of those situations still. And that's kind of why I wanted to talk. Like, I'm happy to be the cold water guy.
Yeah,
Because it's like, okay, if you're at SaaS, go ahead and get excited about this CPQ. Um, but if you're outside of SaaS and you're thinking product level CPQ, that's not at all what we're talking about right now. I think products
yeah,
in general and that whole life cycle, I try to help with some of the custom object work that I do. Like that was an asset object, for example, designed to help, with some inventory management. But we're still not at a place where, the bill of materials and bundling and, you know, managing product life cycles when you have like one thing that could have 50 options. Like that's where you start to, rely on inventory management systems and product lifecycle platforms,
yeah,
even e-commerce, right? Like the ability to make one
yeah,
product on Shopify and have like 50 SKUs. Like we don't have anything like that. And it gets really clunky when you try to do that, in HubSpot
yeah,
right now. It's possible, but that's where it's like we rely on these other systems, the good ones at least. They're moving just as fast sometimes as HubSpot in the direction of like, okay, we're focused on inventory management. They've got like some awesome scanning tools that people use in warehouses, like the QR code scanners. Like they had PDF, like AI PDF, management,
yeah,
like faster uh, than than most places. So they have their place. That's why we're still in the place where we're not trying to do everything, in
yeah,
HubSpot. And this is that place. And this is why we wanted to talk about it today, right?
yeah. Well, and there are some exciting moments in there that still do apply, uh, to manufacturing specifically as well. Um, Digital selling rooms, right? Digital proposals, e-signature, DocuSign integration. Hell yeah, it's
Yeah.
it is time, right? We I think we spend a lot of time thinking, manufacturing is in the dark ages and all of these, we've had these conversations. A lot of people have. I I don't believe that's true anymore. I think that it's time to sort of have a renaissance, in terms of the buyer experience for manufacturing firms specifically. Um, I think that customers are expecting a better buying experience than what we're giving them. Um, and I just believe that we are, some of the things that have come through, in the demos that I've watched and in the work that I'm specifically doing, um, with more manufacturing based CPQs are really focusing more around, um, removing the friction from the buying experience as well. Um, and honestly, that feature set is something that I'm extremely excited about and something that I think we can start to leverage, adjacent to, in concert with, more traditional configurators. So
Yeah. Because it definitely goes down the path of like document generation and management in platform,
absolutely, it does.
which is very exciting to think about. So if we could switch gears for a moment, because this kind of came to me as I was talking to Nico earlier. Uh, we're talking about all the cool things that AI can do. Like every day, there's something new to talk about.
Yep,
Um,
absolutely.
and I'm very intrigued to watch the development of HubSpot as a platform when you're trying to like understand or maybe predict what AI can do versus the functionality that we want in HubSpot. And as we were talking and the CPQ came up, I'm like, at which point do we not even need the rules engine, right? Like, when are we going to be able to like take the engineering spreadsheet or take the engineering diagram, give it to AI, tell it to build the rules, like so that we see it, but then use it to determine the rules so that we are just, you know, we do the guided selling part where we answer the questions and then AI is the rules engine. Like how far are we
So,
from that?
so I think that we are in some ways miles away, and I think it's how you apply AI, right? So when we talk about AI and combine it with like a manufacturing situation where we have to have everything super correct with our rules and with our product logic and things like that, um, we don't want it to hallucinate on us. What I think, here's where I really believe AI at in its current iteration. Now this will change. It's moving at such a pace that I believe in the near future we could get there, but I couldn't put a time on it. Where I think that AI is going to become unbelievably useful in terms of manufacturing configuration is in collecting the requirements for that rules engine. So, you know, an engineer needs to set something in stone, right? You must have this many of this thing in this case, right? Where I think we could really make heavy use of LLM and AI generally, um, is in the collecting of those requirements. So it used to be that we would spend weeks and months trying to get the rules right. What I
Yuck.
believe we can get to is the point where we can have an engineer sit on the phone with us, tell us how something works, explain it in a PDF, record that, and then generate back to them all of the rules that will go into the system. They can then sign them off and we can put them in. And that's, I think, where we really are right now with AI. And that's how I'm using it today. And we've had massive success in speeding up the collection of the data and getting product data ready and all of those things, um, for a CPQ project. So maybe we still need to have things that are a bit more rigid than AI in terms of, generating a proposal, at least in the manufacturing sense, with that large C configurator. I think if we get into the small C configurator and we're talking about SKUs, an LLM definitely could pick out from a conversation what SKUs might need to go in and have a human look at them. But I think where we can really use it from a manufacturing perspective is in the collection of that information sort of on the front end. So speeding up that 3 to 6 month product data readiness consultant cycle that's often required in order to even start the implementation of a CPQ properly.
Yeah.
That's my current hot take. And when we're on GPT 11 instead of GPT 4, um, I hope I'm revising my opinion, because I am extremely excited to eliminate that cycle entirely. But at the moment, I kind of view it more as a tool that can be used to collate, build, learn about how products are put together, document all of those things into a format, and potentially even get to a point where that could be uploaded after a human intervenes slightly. That's, I think, where we are right now in terms of what AI can actually do daily for us. That
Yeah.
makes sense?
Oh yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense because I'm thinking like, as I hear more use cases and people they start to understand they want to do AI, they want AI to do a thing for them and then it immediately shows them how bad their process is because AI
Yep.
cannot understand or it
Correct.
errors. And so I'm thinking
Yep.
back to like uh this should help like engineering teams and product teams. Like that's first step where like if you do have a conversation and then you process it into rules immediately, the AI is going to tell you like, oh, there's a gap here. Like there's nothing
Yes,
here,
exactly.
right? Like this part doesn't make
Exactly.
any sense, right? And I'm sure
That's what
there's
AI is so good at. that's what it's good at. It I think we're a little bit over our skis in terms of what we think AI could do for full process. It's more like if you target it at a specific data problem or a specific set of data, and then you need a result out of it, that's where it's just rocking the world right now. What what it can't quite do yet is take 100 proposals or 1,000 proposals or even 1,000,000 proposals and get the right thing back out in terms of rules and stuff like that. It's still there's still a human element to applying AI, um, and I'm excited for the day that that's not true, and I think we're getting there. But that's I think where we really sit at the moment is that it's more for the engineering team, for a procurement team, like for those teams to speed up things that still have a human touch to them.
Yeah.
And then, if we can get them into the computer more quickly, you know, now
Right.
we're taking a product data readiness project that is absolutely required in order to properly deliver a configurator solution, and we're we're narrowing that time down to something that's previously unseen. So
Yeah. Now it's exciting to
it's
think about because, what just hit is I think there's going to be like kind of a compromise or like a meeting in the middle where um, teams start to use AI to help design things.
hmm
And like, hopefully by that time, everybody is on board with marketing and sales and service being a part of that process. So
yes,
that the process at that point includes like the output of the product, and the design is also like, here's what the supply chain and price or cost looks like. Here's what the
mhm,
price needs to be. Here's what the
yep,
product naming conventions need to be. And here's what the quoting, the CPQ like rules engine
yeah,
needs to look like. Right.
right. So that's what I'm saying is that um, there's an overstory of digital transformation. There's an overarching, you're looking at it from the canopy down of this digital transformation. And then there's all this muck that everybody's pushing through every day trying to get there. And my feeling is that right now AI needs to live in the muck and start cleaning things up. And that it's really for your teams, the people that have that knowledge, so that we can bring that knowledge out more quickly and more efficiently. But I think that the arc is still a human thing at the moment. Um,
Yeah. Well,
that's where
we got to bring AI into the muck. Like
yes,
if we leave it
exactly.
up,
That's what we
if we
need to
leave it
do.
up here, right, it can't
Yep.
help
Nope.
us.
No, we need to be, you know, making things easier, and I think that we're starting to see it. Um, and I what I don't want to do is let it loose yet. That's where I am. I want a I I don't want. I know that I need a human touch to AI's solutions to problems. And I know that if you feed it too much, what you get out can be too general. It needs to be targeted, and so that's where we live right now in the life cycle with AI. And I believe we can have abundant success with speeding things up, with improving processes, because it's, a lot of the time the reason why we're not doing things is because we can't get the data ready for them, or
Yes.
we can't, you know we can't solve the technical problems, like computer technical problems, quickly enough.
Yeah.
um, and that is where I think we can start to very quickly increase velocity with AI. And I say that because I'm doing it today on my team. It's happening. We're seeing it. So
Yeah. No, it's a fun time to be alive. That's for sure.
isn't it?
And
Absolutely. So it's yeah. Skynet has not yet taken over, so
So yeah,
Excuse me.
can either be the one designing it or the one waiting for it
Yes,
to
exactly. No,
come.
I believe if we target properly, we can take advantage of these wonderful tool sets, um, and start to get to the strategic vision that we've all been looking for, um, in organizations and places where we previously would not have been able to, just due to numerous types of constraints. So
Yeah, no, I
the
agree.
future is
So
bright.
much of this is like it's maybe 10% replacement in 90% the stuff you weren't doing anyways, but you
Yes,
wanted to do. You knew you
correct.
needed to
Yep.
do. Right. That's where
Yep.
it's so powerful. And data maintenance and data management and is a
Yep.
huge part of that. Kind of a chicken
Absolutely.
and egg scenario for a lot of organizations. Like you have to understand some level of your data model first, in order to tell it what to clean up. But once you can do that, and that's why I love, working, helping people with that. I've loved working with Bill as we work together on, ERP projects and just bringing data together so that you can leverage things like AI and HubSpot and other tool sets, so that you
Absolutely.
guys
Yeah.
aren't doing that stuff anymore.
Yeah. I know what project you're talking about, and it definitely did have a fairly heavy AI element to it, and it will, you know, now that I guess I should back up a little bit. We're gluing things together so that we can leverage the power that HubSpot has delivered to the market recently around AI. That's what we're doing. And so, and we're using AI to get there as well. So
Yeah,
it's every day in every way it's starting to really become something. So
that's
yeah,
awesome. That's awesome to hear. Well, I appreciate you coming on today. Hope you can, don't mind coming back every now and then. I think there's space for a CPQ trusted voice in the
I'll be
arena.
it.
So
I
yeah,
love CPQ. So
yeah. And we need it for moments exactly like this. Like HubSpot by CPQ. Oh my God. Nope, still doesn't work for this whole group of people.
yeah. Yeah, well, and I in closing, I just wanted to say I believe that HubSpot as a CRM as of today can meet the requirements of, I mean, there are some integrations, some other software solutions we may need depending on the level of complexity where we are. But HubSpot as a CRM is ready to serve the middle market, ready to serve manufacturing. It's there today. And so,
for sure.
and I think that the things that they're doing now in terms of proposals and outputs and things like that, um, we're going to be able to use them. So it's a spectrum, and HubSpot just introduced a big capability in part of that. So
Yeah.
it's all
No.
positive. We're here. So
No, you're absolutely right. And that'll set up the next conversation well, where we tell people why we tell all the manufacturing organizations that think they need, these crazy rules engines, configuring everything from scratch in every moment in every
yeah,
place. Like maybe you don't need all
yeah,
that configuration power, and that's where HubSpot has a big role to play on helping you understand that,
absolutely,
by looking at the revenue data.
absolutely,
So
absolutely.
lots of ways we could go, and I'm sure there'll always be more to talk about. And I appreciate you coming by on this Friday afternoon. Uh,
Absolutely.
and if you're watching, listening, think about your quoting process. Think about quote to cash. Find those opportunities, and let's grow. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Thank you.